Hi, I'm Ray Scott, and thanks for spending some time with us here at Visual Art Photography. Today, we have a bit of a challenge on our hands because we're going to be taking a look at travel photography. Now, what I'm talking about today will also apply to all the photography you do, but when we go traveling, often what happens is we come back with a whole lot of pictures and we don't have any really great photos. What we have are a lot of snapshots and not a lot of really creative, amazing photos. It can be a problem. You know something? I have nothing against snapshots. They're great for gatherings. They're great for anything, parties, lots of fun. Quick shots, snapshots. And when we go on vacation, we have a lot of constraints sometimes, especially if we're not traveling alone. If you're traveling with others, then the vacation's not all about you and your photography. And so you don't have maybe as much time as you'd like to take photos, so you end up taking a lot of snapshots, which can be a record of your vacation, but may not really be a lot of amazing photos there. There's also time constraints in terms of where you are. You may not be in any one place for a long enough period of time to get comfortable with it, find out all of the great things in it, and take enough time to really settle down and take some great photos. There's also weather concerns too. There's all kinds of things that go into travel photography that make it a big challenge for taking great photos. But today, I have some really good tips on how you can come back with not only snapshots, but how you can go beyond the snapshot. Comments and questions can be addressed down below. Now let's get out of here and take some great travel photos.
So we're on the road, and here we are in beautiful Bay St. Paul in Quebec, Canada. And a snapshot. Nothing wrong with this. I actually kind of like it. But if you want to look at something a little bit different, why not move in a little bit closer, go over to the steps and grab something like that. All right, so you're starting to get the idea. It takes it from the snapshot to something just a little bit, perhaps more memorable, or at least a little bit, I think, a little more creative. Now here we are in Cape Cod, and you have these statues that are in the water, depending on how high the tide is. They're on the beach, you see some people there, and it's a record of where you are. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that as a vacation snapshot. But move over to the right, get in a little bit closer, and now you have something that has a little bit more impact than just a snapshot as you move a little bit closer. I was using a wide-angle lens here too, by the way, set at about 24 millimeters and an aperture of f/16. In Newfoundland, Labrador, in this very small town, here's an abandoned house, and again, you see the texture of the wood. You get to see it looks stark. It's falling down. It's bleak. Move around to the right-hand side of the house, and there's a story. And there's the difference. There's a bear up in the window, and it's a different configuration, and you get a different feel, and it goes a little bit beyond the snapshot. Here, even closer if you want to get that story. Now, remember what you saw over here? You saw that door. Now, if you really want to be adventurous and you want something a little bit different, it may not be pretty, but you go inside. And I did. And it's a mess, and water was dripping, and, well, look at it. It's terrible looking, but it is interesting if you like places that are abandoned and things that are old and worn and things like that, which I do. I kind of like that. You move into another room and you get something like that. Okay, so that takes it all a little bit beyond the snapshot. Not saying that's pretty, but it's beyond the snapshot. Here, again, Newfoundland, and I kind of like this shot as a landscape sort of shot, and you have a little bit of the town in the background. You see the homes there and the fishing huts and so on and so forth. Nothing wrong with that. But if you peer over to the right-hand side, right to the very right on the frame, and you take it from being a vacation shot to something that could be taken anywhere and something that looks a little bit different, something like that. The reflections, okay? They're over on the right-hand side there. You see them? And you move in with your telephoto lens and a good aperture of, say, anywhere between f11 and maybe f16 depending, and you get that reflection. Symmetry too, by the way. Newfoundland Labrador again. Snapshot, vacation, sunny, not exactly my choice time to be taking a shot. It's probably close to noon, I think it was. So how do you make this a little bit more special than just this? Well, I moved up closer to that red hut over there, and I tried to compose something a little bit differently. In this way, you get the texture, you get the feel of the wood, you get the color, and it's just a little bit of a different way of looking at a fishing village, if you know what I mean. And you just stick that red building is occupying about 2/3 of the frame. Bold. Here, an iceberg out in the water, and I don't know how much you can do with this. I was using, the maximum I had was 200 millimeters on my lens, so I really couldn't get a whole lot closer, obviously. I'm at the edge, and you see these dark rocks and so on and so forth. So what can you do? Well, fortunately for me, somebody came by, and I used them in the foreground as a bit of interest, so that takes it a little bit away from the snapshot. That gentleman is a point of interest there, so, and he's got his binoculars looking at the iceberg, so that's kind of nice. Or you can do something completely different. Make sure that you have something in the foreground like that, something colorful almost, those rocks, that orange and yellow at the bottom there, and then you have that. So it's kind of balanced, and it's a little bit less like a snapshot. Or you can back off to a completely different area there. And this looks, now, look at this. I'm using the 200 millimeter lens, but I'm standing in a different area, and now all of a sudden it looks compressed. And doesn't that iceberg look like it's like right near the coast? But it's not. That iceberg is exactly that far away, but because I've put myself in a different location and a different angle, it looks like it's almost right at the shoreline. So you can play with perspective to get beyond the snapshot. Here in Prince Edward Island, Canada, right by the side of the road, wild lupins, and they look terrific. And I kind of like this shot because it shows how colorful they are and how many they are. But again, one of my main suggestions for turning a snapshot into something a little more creative looking is moving in closer. And all of a sudden, it pops. Big difference between that, nothing wrong with it, and this. Doesn't look so much like a snapshot. Or this, even closer, you zoom right in and use a relatively shallow depth of field, say f4 or f5.6, and you focus on the flowers in the foreground, and you get a sense of what's going on in the background. I mean, you know there's flowers there, but they're kind of out of focus. And that takes it beyond a snapshot, right? Now it looks a little more creative, like there's a little more thought to it. And you know something? Nothing is different is going on. You're still with people, you're still traveling, you're still moving around, you're not taking any extra time, you're just using a little bit of extra thought to take it from that to something like that. Or change your angle and shoot down and get something like that. Okay? And it's not taking really any extra time. You're just thinking a little bit more about what you're shooting. Same thing here, St. Peter's Bay in Prince Edward Island, and you've got this beautiful, the water's out, the tide is out, and you've got all of this sand. And if you look up on that, a little bit of a plateau, you see something up there. And while there's nothing wrong with this as a nice record shot of St. Peter's Bay, this is a little more creative, right? Okay? You see the jellyfish. You even see the motion. You can see the track where the jellyfish moved. And of course, you've got those great ripples in the sand, and there's some creativity to it. Or you're traveling along and you come upon a bus, an old bus from the 50s and 60s. I mean, that's okay. It's a record shot. But if you want something that's just a little bit different, catches the eye a little bit more, perhaps you move in closer again. That's my main tip here, really, is move in closer. Fill that frame. I've actually done a video on fill the frame And I'll put the link up there so you can click on that if you want to see my fill the frame video. But big difference between standing back and taking the snapshot and moving in and being just a little bit more creative. Okay, there's other things you can do too. You can take a picture, let's say, of a street in the window of a vehicle. Just a different way of framing things. It's not taking you any extra time. It's just taking a little more thought. That's all. Same here. Solitary man, sitting alone. He's tiny in the frame. There's a lot of negative space around. Think about compositional tools like negative space to take your snapshot to something a little bit more creative. Or maybe something like this. Action. The waves crashing up on the beach. It just adds a little bit more to what normally would be kind of like a snapshot, but because you have that spray of water, it's a little bit more creative. It's gone a little bit beyond the snapshot.
So I think we can see that there are ways to go beyond the snapshot even when we're on vacation. Until next time, I'm Ray Scott reminding you, it's not what you see, it's how you see it. And I'll see you soon.